Hey, it's Soul, and this is the Enchanting Guide for the War Within. Here you're going to learn how best to gather and start leveling up, and then we're going to get to the many specializations like being a frontline gatherer, an enchanting specialist, or maybe an all-rounder. The challenge with enchanting is usually with gathering materials, but as a profession, it's going to feel kind of easy to adapt your spec for your particular playstyle. Now, this video is part of a series of profession guides, and a link to the playlist is up in the corner and down in the video description. Please like the video if it's useful and share it with others. Subscribe for more WoW coverage and catch me live on Twitch. Enchanting always feels kind of intimidating because you need a source of materials that isn't always reliable. It's not like other gathering professions where stuff's just kind of lying on the ground. Enchanting, or I guess to be a bit more precise, disenchanting, is very, very hands-on. You're going to want to decide very early on what sort of enchanter you want them to be. Is this enchanter going to be a character that you'll play a lot in endgame content, or are they going to be an alt who receives the scraps given from your other characters or friends and guild members? Are you going to have two of these to split these tasks? And we're going to explore the ideas as we go along. At the start, you've got little choice but to disenchant everything you can get a hold of, even if it'll only produce rank 1 quality materials. Unlike other profession guides, we're going to reach skill level 25 and then come to a hard stop. Don't even disenchant stuff, at least for now, because there's some decisions we need to make. You gotta decide how it is you want to handle obtaining enchanting materials, like if this character is going to be an enchanter or just a disenchanter. The enchanter is going to keep leveling up. The Disenchanter is going to as well, but they want to also fully commit into this disenchanting spec early for the biggest payoff. But for the sake of the B-roll, we'll just keep leveling as a regular old enchanter. You'll notice that all you need really is dust. Lots and lots of this enchanting dust. This footage is really misleading because I already have plenty of the stuff, but with it, we can skill all the way up to 75, which is, pretty crazy because that lets you learn 3 out of the 4 possible specs. You can also get to 85 if you have lots of gold and resources to spare, which I don't really recommend, so let's just stick to the dust. Obtaining the dust is going to be tougher than it first appears. Dust comes from sharding green uncommon gear, and you're going to need a lot of it. Use alts, ask friends, anything you can do to get that powdered gold. But don't be shy about sharding everything around you either. Early in the expansion, you're going to see a flood of starter gear from other professions. It could be a good source of enchanting materials. Uncommon items are, funny enough, going to be less common, but if you do see them, they happen to be profession tools. Keep an eye out on your realm for cheap goods to help level your enchanting. Let's talk about patron crafting orders, which will be essential to your development. Enchanting's got a lot of recipes, and not all of them are learned by the trainer. Some are earned via rep, others by spending artisan's acuity. It's a currency that you'll mostly get from completing these orders. Pick up every order you can, and any recipe you haven't learned has an info button to tell you the source. By completing orders, you'll also get opportunities to complete first crafts and get some skill ups and rewards, including crafting knowledge, resources, and more. And don't be shy about using concentration. Orders refresh regularly, so if you're missing out on an order because it requires too many materials or a skill that you don't yet have, it's not the end of the world if you just let it go. Catch-ups will be in place from the start, so you'll never be that far behind from everyone else. And going forward, this guide will assume you have a skill level of 75. Alright, let's talk about the 4 spec trees. They're learnable at skill levels 25, 50, 75, and finally 100. With a possible skill level of 25 just off of the trainer recipes, you should be able to easily pick up 3 out of the 4 branches, and from my research, there's no dead end that's going to stop you from gaining skill levels. When deciding your spec, you want to ask yourself if you're just enchanting for you, or maybe you're doing it for a few friends or guildmates, or maybe you want to play the market and mass produce goods. Think on that while we take a look. Supplementary Shattering is the tree that gives secondary stat buffs, that is resourcefulness, multicraft, and ingenuity. It's a very good spec to optimize for savings and profits, and it's a very bad spec to choose first. Everlasting Enchantments is, of course, enchantments. Specializations for all the enchanting types, including special recipes, are right here. Ephemerals, Enrichments, and Equipment covers lots of extra stuff, including profession gear, wands, oils, and finishing reagents. Finally, Designated Disenchanter is the gathering spec, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. The cool thing about enchanting in the War Within is that you don't need to worry about jumping across multiple branches to master any particular thing. If you watched my tailoring guide, That was kind of a trip by comparison. More specifically, whatever you do decide to master, when you feel like you've finished, you may want to spec into that supplementary shattering that I mentioned to get buffs that'll improve on your mastery even more. I also want to point this out because it's the first time I'm seeing them. Recipes also have a short description of the specializations that support them. Now this seems to be a work in progress in the beta, and I hope that it's fully implemented in every profession by the time it goes live. This goes a long way towards making sure that you don't make mistakes in what you spec into. Okay, so you want to be a Disenchanter, that is, the gatherer of high-quality enchanting goods. This is a unique gathering spec, and material quality in the War Within is more important than ever. Most recipes across all professions are being balanced in such a way that the following rules apply. Max quality materials will always be in high demand, and they're rare to obtain even with this particular specialization. Max quality enchanting crafts will need max quality materials almost all the time. Master enchanters can craft with lower quality materials, but can only make a few of these crafts per day. That's going to mean the material market will be incredibly thirsty in an industry where replacing gear means replacing your enchant. In short, you're going to make hella gold. Picking the spec first, or at all, it's going to mean that you need to be very hands-on with this character, and you need to be very aggressive with selling these resources to the highest bidder. Maybe you're the guild's mule, and you're going to shard the extra gear, which, by the way, will get you lots of transmog unlocks, hint hint. Whatever the case, speccing into this isn't very transparent because you can't actually see a skill level for disenchanting, but I'll share my understanding. The base trait gives a bonus chance that your disenchants of any quality will yield higher quality materials. The three other specs still increase your bonus chances for uncommon, rare, and epic disenchants, which yields dust, shards, or crystals respectively. It's up to you to choose which of these sides to specialize in first, and it'll be between whatever it is that you'll probably disenchant the most. It might be safe to pump all of your points into the base trait first to increase your skill with all types of items, but if you happen to know where all your disenchants are going to come from early on, then you can probably pivot to that at any time. You also want to very much keep in mind that even with maximum skills and tools, disenchanting behaves like all the other gathering professions in the War Within. Even with maxed out stats, you only have a higher chance of obtaining better quality materials. So in my limited testing, a little bit under 20% of my disenchants yielded rank 3s, and around half of the materials were still rank 1s. Now, I have an extra tip to offer, but beware, this is based on beta information, and I can definitely be wrong. I have a feeling that blue shards, disenchanting blue gear, will be overly plentiful compared to crystals or even dust. I have no doubt that crafters are going to take advantage of cheap blue quality crafting recipes to produce lots and lots of these shards. In a twist, the only green gear crafters can make are profession tools, and those are actually a bit more difficult to make by comparison. Let's move on to making profession equipment real quick. It's over in the ephemerals, enrichments, and equipment tree. This path here will let you learn the recipe right away. And if you happen to focus on this spec first, odds are fair, at least, that you can quickly sell services to make this enchanting tool because other folks will be investing into like gathering or producing enchants. During my time in Dragonflight, I saw no shortage of people wanting enchanting rods to be made, and I don't see that changing here. By purchasing a recipe, you can also learn the Runed Null Stone Rod. It's an even better rod with higher secondary stats. There's a risk, but you can try picking this recipe up really early, and spec as hard as you can into tool crafting in the hopes that you can craft one at max quality, like every few days or sooner as your skill goes up and you're provided good materials. This early, I would charge a massive amount for the craft, and not far from the profession tool spec is the rod spec. Just pump points here to improve your results. Since we're here, let's cover some of the other specs. Mana oils are going to be a thing in this expansion. They're cheap to make, but also have a pretty long duration at 2 hours, ensuring that buyers will only need to buy like so many of these over the course of a whole season, or maybe the whole expansion. For melee users, this might compete with weapon stones from blacksmiths, so this isn't the spec that I'd recommend trying to get a hustle on. But it would be funny if I'm wrong. You can come back and comment on this video to rub it all in my face. Deceptive decoration certainly sounds deceptive because of how useful or not very useful these recipes are, but hear me out. It might take some extra skill points to unlock the sub-spec, but when you do, you're going to immediately learn enough recipes that you can do some first-time crafts, and then learn the next set with the points that you get. And then the bonuses from those first-time crafts are going to get you the next set, and then the next set again. It's like 20 some odd recipes you learn that might show up on patron orders, and given that they offer things like artisan acuity and more, heck yeah, you want to pick this up. I'd almost say that if you can spec to 50 or 75 easily enough, choose this spec first for the coverage and then move back to your actual focus. There's one finishing reagent also worth mentioning. Concentration Concentrate reduces the amount of concentration used by 6 to 10% depending on its quality. It's not terribly demanding to make, and I sort of gravitate towards this thinking that, this might be a good place to dump low-level enchanting materials. This reagent is the only way other than the Ingenuity stat to reduce concentration costs, the difference being it's a guaranteed cost reduction even if it's small. The market for this is probably any crafter spending an excessive amount of concentration on a given craft, basically the Ingenuity spec people. I bet someone good at math would be able to calculate at what point random Ingenuity is more reliable than fixed cost reduction. Now personally, I'd rather take the stat that I can rely and plan around, but at least I wanted to point this one out. The enchantment tree can get a little bit crazy. After the base spec, there are 3 main branches: the Earthen, the Arathi, and the Nerubian. And under those are subspecs that cover certain recipes. Now, no one's going to remember all this, so as a reminder, recipes will tell you what specialization they're aligned to, so you know if you want to juice up a certain craft, you know where to go. Every subspec here leads to a good recipe that most anyone's going to use, and I'll display them all on screen. You almost can't go wrong. The question is if you want to master recipes that use this epic crystal. To illustrate, I'll give you 2 example approaches that I happen to think are good ideas. The first approach that I would take would be tool enchants. I'm going to focus on going straight there using the build like this. I put 5 points in the base trait, 10 points in the subspec, then I can activate terrific tools and receive the enchant for Ingenuity. What I really want though is the perception tool enchant for gatherers. It's purchasable from the Artisan Consortium vendor. I think that's going to be a really popular pick. The quick path to mastering this decently is to max out terrific tools, then either of the upper level traits to fully master it. Since you've already committed yourself to earthen enchantments, it's arguably best to master the other 2 earthen recipes. Now, I'm not so certain that the earthen weapon enchants are guaranteed bangers, but chest enchants, that's a winner for everyone. The other example I want to look at are Cursed Rings. These are interesting enchants that work sort of like Reforging, only they're just ring enchants. Once you spec for it, you learn Cursed Haste. It eats up 100 versatility and it gives a bunch of haste. It's more than what the Radiant ring enchants give, provided by speccing into Arathi enchantments. There are reasons I chose those 2 examples. The profession enchantments can be bought right away from the Artisan Consortium, and the recipes themselves don't use any epic materials. The cursed ring enchants do, and obtaining the other ring enchant recipes, it comes from doing a dungeon boss, but we're not sure if there's a minimum difficulty requirement, as in will this drop in follower dungeon difficulty. A risky spec you can try out too is to specialize in all of the enchants at the same time. I'd recommend this only for someone who is not so interested in selling through the auction house but is willing to offer services via trade, or if they're crafting for themselves or maybe their guild. All you gotta do is max out the base and subspec traits to unlock all 7 of these recipes. You'll also need to do a lot of exploring, some outdoor activities, and of course Artisan Acuity to get all the other recipes. A spec like this, along with nearly max skill and decent tools, will make you capable of max ranking pretty much any enchanting recipe. The twist is that you need to be provided with rank 3 materials for sure, and you'll be cutting huge chunks out of your concentration, enabling only maybe 1 max level craft per day before Ingenuity. Now this way you can cover almost anything that patron orders throw at you, giving a steady flow of acuity for you to learn even more recipes because again, there are quite a few. The last spec to pick up on, or at least the spec to work on once you feel satisfied with your spec choices, is Supplementary Shattering. It's an easy to cast buff that raises your secondary stats: Ingenuity, Resourcefulness, and Multicraft. The base trait gives a passive bonus, and the subspecs give an additional bonus after using a Shatter ability. It doesn't shatter epic crystals or anything, it's just the way to activate the buff. I'd advise maxing out the base trait and then focus on the subspecs that help out your current build. There's also a special profession bag for enchanters called the Magically Infinite Messenger. This gives a bonus 20 to your secondary profession stats when you use the Shatter ability. Which also brings me to what profession tools and enchants to use. Again, I advise going straight for the Runed Null Stone Rod for a solid early investment, and choose the stats that you're likely to use most. If you're crafting with an intention to sell on the auction house, go Multicraft for the base and Resourcefulness for the enchant. If you're crafting for patron or public orders, go full Resourcefulness for the biggest return. If you're crafting for a client and it's your intention to continue crafting for as long as you can, double Ingenuity is your best bet. Enchanting is as fun and frustrating as it's been. The shift from inspiration to ingenuity is very much felt, as is the rarity of materials. The result will likely be high quality enchants being treated kind of like a luxury, much like early Dragonflight, only that time period might be even longer. players are going to be challenged to settle for less, as in lower quality, and it won't surprise me if they do in fact take up on cheap, low quality enchants while they're developing, and then picking up the good stuff for their best in slot. As always, this is based on information we can get off the beta, and we've definitely seen that what we see on the beta might not reflect on live servers. Still, I think there are quite a few fun enchants to pick up, the specializations themselves are easy to learn, and we can look forward to plenty of gold coming your way. That's going to be the guide, and I hope it was helpful. If so, hit the like button and share this with others. Subscribe for more WoW coverage, catch me live, and I'll catch you later. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.